Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Alberta News and Views. Did you know that from 2022 to 2023, 52.3% of Canadians are unable to make their mortgage payments? Yes, this is where we are at in Canada. More Canadians are unable to make mortgage payments. Our housing market, the bubble has burst. Why is nobody talking about this? Yes, they're talking about a housing crisis and there isn't enough housing. What they should be talking about is how over half of Canadians cannot make their mortgage payments. So if they're not making their mortgage payments, they're redistributing that wealth to something else that they cannot pay. Over half of Canadians are struggling to get by. Every time I make a video on finances, like nobody watches them. I'm serious. Nobody wants to talk about this reality in Canada. I'm going to give you a quick breakdown as much as I can. And I'm so frustrated with myself over this because I wish I was a financial expert to break this down so it is flawless, so everybody can understand how dire this is. Chrystia Freeland, I'm going to go with Chrystia Freeland right to a great little video talking about the mortgage situation and housing in Canada and how it is very, very unique. So this is a good post from the National Post, an article from the National Post. John Iveson says, expect a finance minister in survival mode to turn on the spending taps, but the billions of dollars in new expenditure needed to shift the political dial could make an already grave fiscal situation much worse. I believe it's April 16th. Chrystia Freeland is scheduled to release the budget, and it will just be raining money to try and save this Liberal government. But like I showed you, it is the last thing they should be doing. Chrystia Freeland, the finance minister, has named April 16th as the date of the next federal budget. Since nothing much else is working when it comes to resurrecting the fortunes of the Liberal Party, polls have the Conservatives between 15 and 20 points ahead. A finance minister in survival mode can be expected to turn the spending taps to gush, to full bore. And you know, looking back after this disaster government, people elected a prime minister that can't count. And I'm not being funny or facetious. He literally has a video where he says he has a learning disability when it comes to just adding numbers. And he has openly said that he doesn't pay attention to monetary policy. Are you kidding me? So this is no surprise. And we have a journalist and a scholar as a finance minister. Seriously, it should be no surprise to anybody that this is where we are at right now. This is from Blacklock's Reporter, March 6th, Wednesday. Chrystia Freeland missed the budget yet again by $7 billion. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland's current deficit will be 16% higher than forecast. The Budget Office said yesterday, the PBO, Parliamentary Budget Officer. Freeland, last March 28th, predicted her deficit would decline in every year of the forecast. It did not. Quote, I don't know if they have lost control. They have lost control. And I'm not tooting my own horn, but I predicted this months ago. I said, I believe that the Liberal Party has completely lost control because they have completely lost respect of everybody in government and in Canada. So everyone right now is just taking money and running with it and laundering it because the Liberal government is completely incompetent. And everybody knows it. Investors know it. Big business knows it. If they see green with this Liberal Party, they get on board regardless. They don't care what it does because they know they're going to get money. They can do whatever they want with it. Look at what they did in the Arctic with the snowmobiles. Free snowmobiles was supposed to be only like $8 million and it ballooned to 30 or something like that. An absolute ridiculous program that they had going. Here is another post. So this is on the same page as the $7 billion of the Blacklocks that I just showed you. So because she's 16% off, expect $7 billion higher federal deficit, slower growth for Canadian economy. The PBO report doesn't account, here, this is the important part. The Parliamentary Budget Officer report doesn't account for the spending on the new pharmacare plan the Liberals just announced last week. So how much is that going to cost? And it's not even pharmacare. You can't call it that. All the provinces already have something in order. And the real story with that pharmacare deal is Jagmeet Singh selling out Canada for crumbs, for nothing. It's so embarrassing. And of course, today, the Bank of Canada holds rate at 5%, says it's too early to talk cuts. Well, of course, it's too early to talk cuts. We have mass inflation. Canadians can't make payments. And if you cut it, then it creates more inflation. The Bank of Canada held its policy rate steady for a 5th consecutive meeting, acknowledging progress on inflation while reiterating that it's still too early to consider rate cuts. Policymakers led by Governor Tiff McCollum left the benchmark overnight rate unchanged at 5% on Wednesday. The pause was expected by markets and by economists in the Bloomberg survey. Officials say there have been no big surprises in economic data in the 6 weeks since their January decision, when they indicated the decisions were shifting to how long borrowing costs need to stay at the current level. Here is a great breakdown. Canada on mortgage rates is in a bad place. If they reduce, now the dollar will fall, causing more erosion of wealth and more inflation. If they don't, we are facing a housing crash. I truly believe we have reached this housing crash for so many reasons. In Vancouver, there is the Housing Accelerator program for condos, and they found out that the people buying the condos, there's a stipulation that you can't already be like an investor or a contractor, consultant. You can't be one of these building organizations, and they were. So these people that are already set up and have all of this wealth are buying up affordable housing, and then they're just going to rent it out. It's disgusting what is going on in this country. Listen to this.
Dylan, you had started to mention some of the, some of those impacts, that domino effect that's going to work its way through the system, specifically how it's going to affect the economy with less disposable income. Let's talk about what that's going to do to payments. Both sides of that coin with respect to payments going up and, of course, applying greater payments to the principal. Take us through that.
Yeah, well, we've already had a large number of mortgages resetting as rates started going up. That was largely floating rate mortgages switching onto a fixed payment. And that's already brought the average payment on mortgages for Canadian households from somewhere around just below $1,500 a month up towards $1,900, right? So that's already quite a big move. If the 2/3 of mortgages that have yet to reset were to do that at a higher interest rate than those have, it would move that number well north of 2,500, right? So that's cumulatively, almost a 70% increase in the average payment that Canadians are making on their mortgage per month. Now, if you kind of flip that around a bit and look at it from the other way around, that's mortgage payments that now can't be going to other ordinary disposable income spending, right? So people aren't buying holidays, people aren't buying washing machines and, everything that gets measured in GDP. And so it's equivalent to incomes just suddenly dropping by the same amount, right? And that can precipitate a very, very large recession. We hear a lot about the lagged impact of monetary policy shocks. That's what it looks like in practice through the housing market in Canada. And so when you run through that math and you see the sort of recessionary conditions that would create, it paints quite a terrifying picture with rates at current levels and those housing market dynamics at play.
Yeah, it's called a depression. So they'll be like, well, just raise the wages then so they can afford it. You raise the wages, then you have to bump that down to the consumer. It's just like a shop rate, right? If it's $80, you raise it up to $150, well, then you have to pay for it. Higher wages, higher rates, it doesn't matter. This is the thing. This is where we are right now. Everything is just ticking higher and higher and higher because we're all trying to stay afloat. Imagine if they said the headline, over half, like I'm talking government, over half of Canadians couldn't afford their mortgages, and it's expected to get worse because it's not getting any better. And what else is nuts is people are still buying houses. So the wealth divide, the wealth gap is increasing even higher. And then the people with the money are buying the affordable housing. These Atco shacks, which is hilarious. There's pictures of Atco shacks They're calling that affordable housing. I remember the 90s. That was like the bare minimum. You stayed in an Atco shack until your modular home showed up, your trailer that you bought for, what did they tell me? It was $20,000 back then. I believe they're like around 1995. Anyway, that's what affordable housing was back then, and now it's the same thing. They want to go to these modulars, and those are $200,000. I just can't believe it that this is where we're at in Canada. When Chrystia Freeland goes out and boasts, don't worry, everybody, we are sitting financially the best in all of the other countries in the G7. So does that mean she's just going to get a bigger credit card? It reminds me of when the bank sends you those automated messages that says, hey, you're pre-approved for a $15,000 or whatever overdraft or credit. It's like that's what Chrystia Freeland gets every month. Hey, Chrystia, you've been pre-approved for another $20 billion because you're sitting so well in the best of the G7, but she doesn't think to herself, well, maybe I shouldn't be taking this on because I can't afford it already. It's just crazy, the complete incompetence. And I know people are screaming at me right now saying, this is all by design. This is all by design. This is intentional. This is on purpose. Yeah, I get that. But it doesn't take away from the fact that Canadians need to stop. This is happening because Canadians are allowing it. The bubble has burst, I believe. And the only way is to just stop, slow down. In the States, the big thing right now is tax revolt, boycott, and tax revolt. Those are really, really good first steps because that will stop the government and say, whoa, they're not paying their taxes and they're boycotting stuff now. It's crazy the power of the markets, and I believe that's where people need to focus their attention because the corruption in Canada is so bad, politicians can't turn this ship around. It's going to take boycotting and hitting them in their financial wallet. It's crazy. It's just scurrying. The government is just shaking up the jar of ants, us being the ants. Follow me on Substack and Spotify. I will keep you updated with all of this stuff. Like, share, and take care.